There are many reasons why people read books. We read books for obligation, like when we go to school, to college, to university, maybe because of work, we need to develop a new skill or we need to complement some knowledge. Sometimes it's just out of curiosity. Other times we read for entertainment, like when we read Gothic literature or horror or fiction in general. But did you know that to go into a deeper level of understanding of this book and to get more of a flavor, the best thing that you could do is write a review? If you were not aware of that and you want to know more, today I'm going to tell you about 6 cognitive reasons why writing a horror review is for you essential to get a better understanding. Is 6 cognitive benefits of writing horror book reviews. This is today's video. Well, hello friend, this is Alice and you are in Gothic Land, a place where I help you with your critical thinking to improve your communication skills through the Gothic lens. Okay, we do all these things here. So today I want to tell you about the 6 cognitive benefits of writing horror book reviews. But before we go into all the 6 points, I want to remind you that I have a free PDF, I can't speak today, a free PDF that you can use precisely to move all these 3 areas. So in this PDF, you have 6 points on how to become a strong critical thinker. So you have 6 points that you can start applying from today, from the moment you download this. The second aspect I talk to you about or I help you with are just bullet points to become an effective communicator, whether this is in the oral arena or in the written arena. I give you 5 points, and I also give you another 5 points where I help you overcome your fears through the Gothic. So it's just very brief things for you to start thinking about all these aspects that can help you overcome communication fears, but also other fears, and move your critical thinking in different ways. And to download these, you just have to go to my webpage, gothicalice.com, and down the rabbit hole. That is the PDF. Okay, so going back to what we're talking about today. There are, when I read for entertainment, I read mainly because, I'm going to be honest with you, I have this fear, and this fear is fear to death. And yes, I do fear death. I suppose most of you, or many of you, or some of you maybe, fear death. And the way I have to put up with this fear so I don't go crazy is to actually watch films and to read books that show me different ways of dealing with death. So as you can imagine, the Gothic context, or the Gothic books context, even in horror we find Gothic. We'll see that, we've been talking about that many times. You see, or I find different solutions that satisfy or that calm down this anxiety that I have about death. So it gives me solutions, it gives me different paths, it talks about ghosts, it talks, it's like another door that is open there that we don't know about, but there's a possibility, there's something there for me. So when I actually do a book review, what I am doing is I'm understanding even better how these mechanisms work, and it's actually helping me not just overcoming my own fear, but also to get my brain in gear and to I feel a lot happier. Is a satisfaction that you get from doing a review is based on these 6 points that I'm going to tell you. There are many more things and many more benefits and advantages that you might find yourself, but I want to tell you about what is the most general feeling or idea for now. So the first point is that we get awareness. So when you are writing a review of a horror book, they are complicated because doing a review from a book that is historical, for example, is pretty objective. But a horror book, what you get, or a fiction book, what you get are a lot of paths and a lot of little roads that you can take, and they might not take you to logical exits, because in fiction you have this frame where things are allowed, not like in a non-fiction text that things are more logical and they have to happen that way and you have to be super careful. It's a different type of text. But in horror, in the Gothic, in fiction in general, what we get is, when you're doing a review, you get this awareness. You need to know exactly how the characters work, the role. You need to know exactly the structure. So it invites you to do this analysis so you get everything right and get maybe the author's idea. And I love doing that personally. So this already takes me to go deep down, a deeper level of thinking than if I was just reading to get maybe biographical information, which is also a level of you have to work as well, you have to think, you have to be objective, and you have to know what you're doing. But fiction is a little bit more, how to say, it moves a lot more. It's not so fixed, it's not so rigid. So that's one. It creates this awareness around structure, characters, roles, and it helps you understand better what you just read. The second point is that, again, in this depth, in this analyzing in depth this story, you also look for logical explanations. And sometimes there are no logical explanations, but these explanations have to match the story. You need to be satisfied. It needs to make sense. I also think that when you are, a review is all about telling someone else about something that you read. And that means that you're going to be bringing your own opinion. If it's an objective review, you have to be careful not to give your own opinion. But if it's a review, it's a personal review like the ones that I write, then you want to create also this contact, this connection with your reader, where you want the reader to feel what you felt when you were reading. And this takes a lot of knowledge about the language, this ability to play with the vocabulary, to play with your syntax, to play with the metaphors. We are into the literary arena, and this is beautiful because you can play a lot. You can also be a mini writer when you're doing a review. It can be a poetic review. It can be something that you can use to express and to show your own skills, your own writing skills. So going deep down into this deep analysis creates this connection with the reader. And I think that is actually beautiful, because then the reader enjoys, before buying or reading this book, enjoys this point of view. And then when they read the book, they already have a preconceived idea they might disagree with, or that they, as they are reading, they're going to find out that, oh yes, I agree with that, or I disagree with that. So you have this conversation with the reader as well later on. So as I said before, the third point at a cognitive level is that you are using language and literary devices that you wouldn't be using otherwise in a different context. So when you're speaking, you're telling a friend about a film or a book that you've read, you're not really paying attention to the use of your vocabulary, your language. You're using probably a lot of slang and a lot of swear words even. You might be using throwout words and all these language tools that we have when we're speaking face to face with someone more in a more relaxed way. But when you're actually writing, you have to cognitively use that part of your brain where things have to make sense. Your connectors have to be in the right place. You cannot use repetitions. You have to visually divide your paragraphs. So there's a lot more going on when you are writing than when you're actually reading. So again, by using literary devices and your language at a different level, you are actually using, or you're going to your critical thinking, and you're discriminating, you're choosing, you're controlling, you're deciding. So you're actually doing a lot of work. And writing a review takes a lot of energy. Some people might read a review and don't think much about it, but the reality is that it takes a lot of time, it takes even research, and it takes energy. So it's a very in-depth exercise that helps you at cognitive levels various different cognitive levels. Right. Point 4 is that you have to back up your arguments. So this is another exercise that critical thinking gets involved in. When we need to back up your arguments, you need to look for maybe other people's reviews. Maybe you need to find moments in the book that clarify an idea. Sometimes this is a lot better. It gives a better idea to the reader what you're trying to say. So again, it's you go beyond what you're supposed to do, and this is very useful again for your everyday life, because in a similar way, when you are working, you are asked to find arguments to support your opinion or your decisions. If you're making a decision at work, then in a similar way, when you're doing a review, you're having to find all these breadcrumbs and all these key phrases and sentences that actually clarify what you're trying to say to your reader without having to use so many words. So by doing this research, you becoming a little bit of an investigator, which is point 5. You put in your investigator's hat, and then all of a sudden you're writing a review, you think, oh, when I was reading this book, I was thinking of this, or I was thinking about that, or I was thinking about the other. This is something that happened to me recently when in my last article about The Company of Words by J.R. Park, I did that. The way I did my review was by writing notes as I was reading the book, and that was a whole different experience. So then when you're doing your review, you're thinking, right, at that point I was thinking of this, I was thinking of that, I'm going to do a bit of research. Then you find that you've forgotten the names, that for example, if you think about a passage where that reminds you of a film and you kind of don't remember the film, well, then you're going to be doing this research. You're going to go, okay, that's the film, that's the date when it was produced or when it was in the cinema. These are the names of the people who made the film, So you start looking for other references, and you become this little investigator that is actually, without realizing, learning a lot of new things that you wouldn't have learned otherwise. So you're contributing to your own knowledge culturally, and also as your critical thinking, by discriminating the information you don't need and the information that you need and you want to use. And that expresses very well those thoughts that you have in mind. Right, so that takes us to point number 6, which would be language talking about the language. And this is called meta-linguistics. So when we talk, we're aware of the language when we do review. We're aware of the language that is being used because we talk about this expression or this word creates this effect, and then that's what I thought this, and that's what the author took me there. So this meta-linguistics is directly connected to metacognition, which is being aware of the language and the processes that we use in our minds to understand language. And why, by using this word, we are creating this idea, this concept in our heads, and why by using another word, we're creating a different concept and a different idea. And again, by doing that, if you are learning a second language, it's super useful because you are learning new synonyms, new vocabulary, new adjectives, but also in your mother tongue. We always get stuck using the same vocabulary, and by being aware of avoiding repetitions, you go to your synonyms, you go to your book of synonyms, you're trying to find that word that really, really explains that thought, that feeling, and feelings are really, really difficult to describe. So sometimes people even invent new vocabulary to describe those feelings. That's why the language keeps evolving in a natural way. Right, so these are the 6 points that actually help you from a cognitive point of view when you're doing a book review. But all these 6 points also have advantages and benefits. And this is what I'm going to talk to you about next. So what we're creating, in general, we're creating this awareness, okay? By doing a review, we are aware of the language, of the context, of the author's intention. We are creating something beautiful that when we are speaking, we can't. Simply because we just want to communicate, and the idea when we're speaking orally is just to get the communication across, that it works, that the information gets to the other side. when we're doing a review on horror, we need to figure out all the different ways that the author is trying to tell us a story. Also because with horror, with Gothic, we have a lot of fragments, fragmented mind, the uncanny, sublime scenery, things that we're not sure about. And to create that tension, that is very complicated. So by doing this analysis, we're aware of where the gray areas are, and we're aware of what the author is trying to do, and if he or she achieves that and gets from you that reaction. So again, that is something that is very beneficial, because it keeps you thinking and analyzing and working out your own fear, which is at the end of the day why we read sometimes. We want to see how other people feel, how they overcome their fears. You know, fears can be multiple, not just in communication, but also, as I said to you before, your own fears about death, or about insects, or about anything that you might fear. So if what we want to do is to convince our reader about reading or not a book, then we also have to be clever using our vocabulary. And somehow, and I've said that before, somehow these also can show your writing skills and your abilities, and maybe people might come to you for further reviews. You might get people offering you to do a review for the books, or you might get a job. You never know. So, you know, this is another benefit. It's more an economical benefit, but it's a great benefit. And if you like writing, and if you have to start in your writing career, this is great. It's a way of, first, of training yourself into the writing space, and to start letting people know who you are. And also because you might get some kind of jobs and some promotion or some collaboration. So it's a win-win. You can't lose. You can't really lose. So basically, and just to finish off the video, I think that reviewing horror books should be actually an activity used in the schools. And I tend to be going back to this in my last 2-3 videos. I'm very aware of what is missing in some schools. I know that not everybody is the same. I know that generalizing is not nice and is not appropriate, but my perception personally about what schools are doing in regards of writing communication skills, I don't think it's enough. I think there's a lot of emphasis in other areas, but really everybody needs to write at some point. Everybody needs to communicate in the written space. They need to communicate something at one level or another. So writing book reviews is such a deep exercise, so intense, that if schools were teaching this from very early stages, obviously with little books, easy books, adapted books for kids, and then later on with books adapted to the students' ages, I think that everybody would communicate more effectively, and there probably would be less misunderstandings in our everyday routines, in when we negotiate with colleagues at work, and when we're trying to get a client. Independently of where you're working, at the end of the day, writing is writing. But since horror and the Gothic are these spaces that are so difficult to explain, to put into words, I think everybody should have the opportunity, and schools should be providing these, because at home parents do not have all the skills. We can make our kids read books, but not everybody knows how to write a review, and that should be down to the teachers. So I'm going to leave this here with you today with this thought. I'm going to leave you here with this thought about, you know, do you actually think that writing reviews for you is something that would help you? Have you tried it? Do you think that cognitively, when you've written a review, if you are a writer, that something is working, something is sticking in your head, and you get even more ideas for future writings, for future articles? How does that benefit you? Do you think that schools should actually be using horror reviews and Gothic reviews more to help our kids to think more critically? Please let me know. I'm super interested. I think it's a very interesting topic. The readers, the writers, we're all part of the same thing at the end of the day, and communication needs new voices, and we need to learn more how to communicate more effectively without using or knowing how to use our vocabulary and our expressions and how to come across the other person. But having said all that, remember, if you want to already start going down this path, remember that in my gothicalice.com, you have my free PDF, Down the Rabbit Hole, where I actually help you with 6 points on critical thinking to become a more effective thinker. I give you 5 aspects of 5 actions that you can take already to start triggering your communication skills and improving them. And then I also give you the reasons of 5 aspects why you should do all this through the Gothic lens. So the question today, think about how can reviewing horror books can help you. Do you agree or disagree with me that schools should actually include these activities more in their curriculum? And if you actually write articles, how do you feel about it? So plenty to think about. I would appreciate your comments. If you like these videos, the same as always, subscribe, thumbs up, share, and follow the leader, follow the community, and follow everything that has to do with critical thinking, communication skills, and the Gothic, because it's wonderful. You learn a lot of things. So happy September, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.